Lynn. Present. Ms. Lynch. Mr. McCulloch. Mr. Pearson. Present. Mr. Smith. Here. Mr. Thibodeau. Here. Have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. This time I would ask Commissioner Dominic Lewison, prayer, Commissioner Coxon, pledge, please.
All bow our head. Dear God, just thank you for allowing us to be here today, and watch over, protect us, and forgive us in the many sins and our failures and our shortcomings, dear Lord, and just pray that you be with the people of Caddo Parish and be with us as we go forward with doing your duty today, and just ask that we do everything in your name, and praise your name, and thank you for all the wonderful things you've done. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first we'll have agenda additions. If you will notice, I placed a little one-page copy on your desk, the latest interpretation, state law as far as agenda additions. You need to be specific in stating the item that you wish to bring up. Very specific, not vague. Matters related to is vague. State your intent and purposes. If a majority or unanimous consent of the body is to allow to go forward for discussion, and you may make your motion at that time. So kind of read it. It's a new thing, but we'll keep us out of the, keep us in the good graces of the Attorney General. All right, agenda additions. Mr. Cox?
At this time, I'd like to make an agenda addition of confirmation of Everett Harris as the new Animal Control Director.
Second. Okay, he's brought that up. We need to bring up Mr. Harris. His nomination is new Director of Animal Control. There's unanimous approval to bring this item up, so let's vote when we can. That is unanimous. All right. Make your motion, please.
Motion is to move Thursday with a second to confirm Mr. Everett Harris as the new Director of Cattle Animal Control, effective immediately.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to move to Thursday to consider the confirmation of Mr. Everett Harris as our Animal Control Director. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, please vote to move to Thursday. All right, we are there. Thank you. Any other agenda additions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith.
I placed a resume for Patrick Michaud at your desk. Mr. Michaud, I'd like to appoint him to the Board of Commissioners for Fire District 6. He will be replacing Mr. Jimmy Kubian, who resigned.
Mr. Smith would like to discuss bringing up Mr. Michaud as a replacement to Fire District 6. There is no discussion. We must all vote to allow this to come up. Let's vote when we can. That's unanimous. All right, make your motion, please.
I'd like to move that Mr. Michaud be appointed to Fire District 6 immediately as a replacement for Mr. Jimmy Kubian, who resigned.
Second. Moved and seconded that Mr. Michaud be appointed effective immediately upon Thursday's meeting to the Fire District 6 Board. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, please vote. Let's move forward to Thursday. Any other agenda additions? Being none, we'll have visitors. Mr. Jenkins introduce his guest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call forward Mr. Ken Rainey, okay, with Oxyon. He's going to give a presentation here today. As you all know, we went through an exercise to bring in a new fiscal agent bank. One of the things that we asked was that, that they would support what we call a community development initiative in our area. And Oxyon of Texas, Louisiana, is such a group, and I welcome him here today. And Mr. President, I appreciate you giving an opportunity to address the commission and see if they have any questions in particular they'd like to ask.
Welcome. Just state your name and address for the record.
Kenneth Ramey, that's 18707 Mill Hollow in San Antonio, Texas, 78258. Appreciate your time today. Don't intend to take up more than 10, 15 minutes of your time. Happy to be here as the first step in what we hope will be the development of a strong partnership between Oxeon and the local area. We've had conversations of an informal nature with Commissioner Jenkins for some time, last few months. As our organization has continued to grow, both throughout Texas and now into Louisiana, and as we started to gather commitments from other entities here in the area, it made perfect sense to revisit some of those conversations with Commissioner Jenkins to see what it is we might be able to do to help the local small business community, especially during a time when credit markets are tight and traditional financing sources are just not what they were 12 to 18 months ago. I've enrolled you with a bit of paper. My apologies for that, but I wanted to give you some of the basics of our organization to read at your leisure. It's not my intent to read through all of that for you today, but instead to kind of just talk about Oxeon and tell you what we've been up to in the past couple of years, but also give you kind of a high-level overview of what we've done in our 16 years of existence. You may have heard the term CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. Typically, that definition is an alternative financing organization to traditional community banks. There are banks, there are CDFIs, but generally speaking, a CDFI is an alternative financing source. We are a CDFI. We are also considered a micro lender in that we do loans as low as $500. Our average loan size is $15,000. We are the nation's largest micro lender at this point by a fairly wide margin. We have made over 10,000 loans in our 16-year history, distributed just over $94 million in total. Currently maintain a loan portfolio in Texas and Louisiana of about $26 million. To put those numbers in perspective, again, I bring you back to our average loan size of about $15,000. So really dealing with tremendous volume, dealing with those individuals that perhaps without the assistance of bank financing and without the assistance of a CDFI, may turn to much more expensive alternative funding sources such as credit cards, payday loans, sources of financing that aren't nearly as regulated and from an interest rate perspective are certainly much more costly. We've seen tremendous growth in our activity, especially over the past 5 years, in particular, as I mentioned earlier, the last 12 to 18 months, as traditional credit markets have tightened up quite a bit. We feel we have a proven process. I think a lot of the folks that are first introduced to the concept of microlending here in the U.S. assume that, yes?
A little distance between you and the mic, and back up from it just a little bit. We're hearing you fine. Back up a little bit more.
Okay.
There you go.
How's that?
Excellent.
Okay. The assumption, I think, when it comes to microlending is that rates are exorbitant and the risk is perhaps unduly high to make it a viable enterprise. Our history shows that there is a way to do it correctly. We are regulated by usury laws. Our maximum loan rate is 18%. When you compare that to the imputed rate you see in the payday loan world of 300–400%, when you see what happens in the credit card industry and what is going on with rates there, we are a viable alternative. With respect to our repayment rate, our experience has allowed us to develop a proprietary underwriting system. We've developed it in-house, and we actually experience a 94 to 95% repayment rate, which in this day and age, many commercial banks would be enviable of that. So we're very proud of the system we have in place. The system that we have in place has been so good to us that we are actually marketing that underwriting system to other micro lenders throughout the country. We have a stable of 13 clients that do what we do in other parts of the country, that contract with us to provide their underwriting and servicing for them, because again, we have developed a strong history in terms of portfolio performance. It's been a period of rapid growth. The decision was made last year to expand into the Louisiana market because of the demand that was there. In addition, because of some funding sources, they had reached out to us. We currently have an office in New Orleans, have an office in Alexandria that has just started. We are hoping to be up and running here in Shreveport within the next 60 days, with a goal of having an office in Baton Rouge sometime in the fourth quarter. With respect to what's going on here in Shreveport, we have secured commitments from the City of Shreveport, as well as the Beard Foundation here in town, both of which on a combined basis are sufficient to get us up and running. We would, however, like to be able to have as much of a cushion in place and something that really allows us to look out 2 to 3 years and say we have enough in the way of both loan funding as well as operating funding to sustain us and really get some traction here in this market. So again, the conversations that started informally with Commissioner Jenkins are now at the point where we have other commitments, and we're hoping that we can get others to jump on the bandwagon and help us help you, I guess is the easiest way to put it. I think from a small business lending perspective, you'll continue to see credit markets tight from a commercial banking perspective. You'll continue to see struggles in terms of locating alternative sources. Not all CDFIs are made the same. One of our strong selling points in securing funding from the government, from other municipalities, from foundations, as well as individuals, is our track record, our 16-year track record, and the size of our portfolio, and certainly the repayment history that we've experienced. So that's a bit of a 10-minute commercial for Axiom. My hope again is as you look through our audit and our fact sheet and our annual report, that will generate some concrete questions in your mind, which I'll be more than happy to answer for you when the time is appropriate. But we are excited to be here in Louisiana. We have become extremely active on the fundraising side. One of our challenges always is liquidity. It's a nice problem to have, and that the demand is so high that we have to continue to stretch to bring in those dollars to fund that demand. So there remains a heavy reliance on fundraising. We've identified a couple of individuals here in Louisiana that will help us with that. We are in the midst of launching a new capital campaign that will allow us to diversify our donor base away from banks, the government, municipalities, and more so into individual donors. So in a lot of ways, we're going through some of the growing pains that many of our small businesses that we serve are going through. But again, I think most within our organization and on our board would say that the challenges we're experiencing are nice challenges and nice problems to have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ramey. Any questions for Mr. Ramey? Mr. Commissioner Pearson?
Yes, when you make those loans, do you evaluate a business owner's business plan? How do you go about determining whether or not his business is substantial enough? Or?
Yes, sir. We have a fairly extensive list of criteria we go through. In many ways, our underwriting process mirrors what a bank would do. The difference being that we are a bit more flexible in certain areas where banks are not, namely personal credit score, perhaps lack of traditional collateral. We obviously fund a lot of startup businesses. A lot of times the collateral we may take there has nothing to do with the business, but instead are personal assets, whether it be jewelry, things of that sort, anything non-traditional types of collateral. Process is the same. the willingness to work with the borrower to try to find an answer is where we differ a bit. Now, of course, when you compare rates, our rates are certainly higher than what a bank would charge a quote-unquote qualified small business applicant. But it is not a night and day sort of difference. Our average rate is roughly 12%. In the small business world, I think that's very competitive, especially in an environment where there aren't too many options right now.
Okay. More questions?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jenkins.
Thank you. You know, oftentimes when people hear about organizations such as this that are trying to help small businesses in the non-traditional way, one of the big concerns is whether or not money is going to be lost on bad loans. Are you all keeping up with the return on the loans that you're making? Can you give us a little insight on that? Because nobody's suggesting that everybody make bad loans. You want to make good loans to good people who may be experiencing some difficulties.
Well, there's no doubt that lending in the consumer or small business segment is much riskier on average than lending in the large corporate segment, and the numbers have borne that out for years and years and decades. That all being said, we're very happy with our repayment experience. It's on average 94 to 95% in terms of the principal that we put out there. We did feel the impact of the downturn in the economy, as everybody else did last year, had a much higher level of charge-offs and delinquencies around the middle of the year than we ever would have expected. We're happy to say that because of the relationships we have, the way we make loans, which are essentially face-to-face relationships, really allowed us to turn up the heat on our borrowers and make sure that to the extent we could, they made their obligation to us as important as any of their other obligations. And happy to say that by year end, we were back to our historical norms in terms of repayment rate. As I mentioned, to get a repayment rate that high is doing pretty well in any arena, be it the CDFI world or the traditional commercial banking world these days. It's a rough economy out there, and small businesses typically don't have that much cushion for a downturn. But from day one in our process, it's very much a face-to-face process. We feel that our borrowers do have some sort of connection to their loan officer and to the organization in general. It certainly makes the collections process a bit different than what you might see from a commercial bank, which is a series of letters and phone calls. We typically work in some face-to-face visits and things of that sort. And we found that to be helpful.
Do we take a good look at also, you know, often when we're talking about small businesses and startup businesses, you know, people have wonderful ideas, but there's a big difference between dreams and realities. Do you take a pretty good look at the project itself when someone is coming in for a loan, the viability of it, the realities of whether or not it could be a success? Have you all been able to keep track of that area of lending?
We do. You know, there are really two main thrusts within our segment. There's certainly loan funding, which we specialize in, and then there's the whole area of technical assistance. And while we provide as much as we can in that regard, we really defer to many of our partners that we have locally in our different markets. Small business development centers, entities such as that really work with the borrowers, ask the tough questions to develop a business plan that really makes sense. We're not of the mind to simply make a loan because the factors are in place, but the business plan doesn't work. If we have somebody who wants to start up a business, has sufficient collateral, has some outside income, all the ratios work, but don't necessarily have experience in running a business and certainly don't have a business plan in place, we're more apt to pass on that until such time as they've gotten themselves with an expert, somebody on the technical assistance side, whether it's somebody with us or a partner of ours, to really make sure that there's a plan and we're not just flying by the seat of our pants here.
Okay, and have you all had an opportunity to kind of look at it from the standpoint of the economic impact that it would have on an area such as Caddo as far as job creation, job retention? is there anything you could tell us from your experience thus far in other areas, how that's working out?
There's anecdotal evidence, certainly, just comparing similar sized areas and similar demographics. We have some projections for the Shreveport area that are in your package, and you'll see some information there about what loan volume and dollar amounts, and I hope that we included some of that job information in there as well. But to give you an example, we have another market in Texas, which I think is somewhat comparable to the market we're in right now. Over the course of 4 years, we were very happy with the $8 to $10 million in loan production. But what we were happier with was the creation of 2,000 jobs and the retention of 1,500 more. It's interesting. We get asked all the time, how are you regulated? We don't have the FDIC and the OCC breathing down our neck. In a lot of ways, we have many, many more masters because we have so many funders, all of whom have different areas of focus. In many cases, that focus is job creation in some way, shape, or form. We absolutely have to measure impact beyond how many dollars we put out on the street. Job creation, job retention are two items that we have to track very, very closely. Otherwise, it's a one-shot deal with some of our funders. If we don't step up, then that funding source goes away. So we are continually having to prove ourselves, especially as we enter new markets. And certainly that's a question we get quite a bit as we're entering Louisiana.
And finally, when you're talking to local government entities such as this, a big interest is making certain that we're helping, our citizens, our taxpayers. You're all able to keep track of loans in such a manner that if a local governmental body such as this say, hey, look, we just want to see what's happening in our area, for you to produce that kind of data?
Yes, so we've gone to great lengths to set up our internal systems and processes to make sure that money that is generated from a particular market stays in that market, and that we can track what was done with those dollars, and that there's no leakage to cover shortfalls in other areas or things of that sort. We absolutely understand that is probably the most important aspect of any of these conversations. We're now in 14 different cities, and this conversation probably comes up more often than any as we've talked to the different municipalities and frankly the different foundations and the different individuals that are looking to contribute. They want to make sure that the money stays in their local area.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any more questions for Mr. Ramey? Ramey, thank you for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Everybody will take it under consideration and advisement. We appreciate your time.
Thanks very much.
Okay, next, Ms. Amanda Lewis is here. State your name and address for the record, please.
Amanda Lewis, LSU in Shreveport, 1 University Place, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71115. I'm here today to introduce you to the Caddo Parish Stormwater Partnership and ask for your participation and endorsement of the partnership. Basically, the idea came about through a meeting with Commissioner Matthew Lynn and representatives from the city, Mike Strong, Ali Mustafa, and Caddo Parish Levy Board Representative Don Maddox from LADOTD. The meeting was to address flooding issues in the parish and to look at ways to gain information about these flooding issues and possibly seek alternative solutions to improve stormwater management in the parish. Through this meeting, Don Maddox relayed information that DOTD successfully uses Facebook in addition to a standalone website to be a public interface to gain information from the public and to provide the public with information. Matthew Lynn contacted LSU in Shreveport, which is why I'm here today, And it was through this contact with LSUS in Shreveport that the Red River Watershed Management Institute at LSUS was brought in to be the coordinator for this partnership, where we will run the Facebook interchange and also be coordinators for the standalone website. So the goal would be to, for the partnership to act as a consortium, to be a clearinghouse for public information related to stormwater and flooding issues, and be a go-between between the public, any questions they might have, and provide information, and eventually gain enough information through public input and all of this information. There'll be a clearinghouse from all of these governmental agencies. Look for sustainable stormwater management practices throughout the parish.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Lynn?
At some point, will all of this information, once it's gathered, the factual information and the emotional information, will it be marketed?
The goal for the partnership would be have the information collected and marketed towards individuals that would propose solutions for flooding issues. So it would be open to universities to propose management situations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Dominic.
What are you asking for the commission to do? I mean, I know you said endorse it, but what exactly, specifically, would you need?
All I'm looking for is an endorsement to say that the parish is a member of this stormwater partnership.
Okay.
And other organizations that are going to be proposed members would be LSUS, which Chancellor has agreed to be a member. The Caddo Levy Board, which I've also sought their approval, and their approval is pending based on their next meeting. The Water Resource Committee of Northwest Louisiana, City of Shreveport, and anyone else who would like to participate.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Lewis? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next we have Gary Henson. Mr. Henson, how are you?
I'm good today, thank you.
This is Gary's handout.
Name and address for the record, please.
Gary Hanson, Swan University Place, Shreveport, Louisiana. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to talk about a couple of three topics that we've, it's been a few years since I've been here to talk to you about, and it involves the parish in several different ways. I'm going to rush through some of these slides, but I want to let you know also that the efforts that you've taken as we've developed and been involved in this Haynesville Shale play are reaching far beyond this area to a national, even an international audience, the way we're dealing with particularly the water issues. Today, we now know that the shale play that really was kicked off by the Haynesville with the large volumes of gas are affecting the whole national and international energy scene to the point now that it's changing radically from an oil-based to a larger degree a gas-based economies in a lot of different areas. If you look at this map right here, you can see the Haynesville is located obviously here in North Louisiana, East Texas, Woodford Shale, Fayetteville Shale. You see these shales all over the United States, and all of those are starting to spring up, but none of them has been productive as the Haynesville Shale play, particularly per well. One of the issues here is once these plays got going, we started looking at reserves nationally. We now see the potential of 2,074 trillion cubic feet of gas. That's equal to the oil supplies of Saudi Arabia. To just give a quick look back a few years, when I started off working in oil and gas many years ago, Carthage Field was a very large field in the United States at 7 TCF. Monroe, most of that gas was wasted for carbon black. There was no system of transportation, 8 TCF. And we're looking now at the activity as of 2008. A lot of these squares are actually, the squares are actual units. Stars are actually wells. Here's what it looks like today. an incredible increase in the number of wells. We're looking at 945 Haynesville wells, either drilled, producing, or in the process of being drilled. This is something new that you've probably not seen to date. The Haynesville Shale play has been very extensive in DeSoto Parish, Southern Caddo Parish, but now it's trending towards, all the way down towards Angelina County in Texas. It hasn't stopped yet. It's still getting larger. And we're looking at somewhere around at least greater than 250 TCF of gas. Remember I said before, the largest field in the United States, 8 TCF. We're going to be the largest field in the world, in the United States, and probably fourth in the world. It's also important to note that the uplift around the central part of the area here is also the area that we have a recharge area for the aquifer, Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer. It falls right in the center of that. You've heard a lot about fracking lately. I'd like to just mention a couple of things about that. This is a recent well just south of town in Caddo Parish. They're drilling 4 wells on one pad, 45 feet apart. This well is drilling, that well is being fracked at the same time. That's a steel wall about 45 feet high between the wells. This is a new log, a new type of log is being used in this type of industry. Over on the right, the old-fashioned log on the left, I guess you'd say. Obviously, water and proppant is pumped down into the well. Most of these diagrams you see are very much not to scale. Let's look at this a little closer to scale. You have about 2,000 feet, 1,800, 2,000 feet of casing that's run to protect the aquifer. Our aquifer only goes down about 400 feet. So that pipe covers over the aquifer. Then you have a intermediate casing that covers again that interval, and then ultimately another casing that goes down. So you have 3 strings of pipe that protect that aquifer. Also, another issue of concern is spills on the surface. The companies have really turned around on that one, particularly Petrohawk. They put a complete pad down under that location, or at that location, has a lip on it, fill it with gravel. Nothing gets through that pad. They have a zero spill policy, Petrohawk does. We'll skip that slide and a couple more of these. One of the things that as I go around the country giving talks about this play, one of the things I bring up, this is up in Austin, a well right in front of the Austin Baptist Church, I believe it is. We're used to this oil and gas activity more than the rest of the country. That's something that we know about, but also the companies also know that we have some water issues and are aware of that issues. And for the first time ever, the industry has basically changed the way they do operations. We've taken them off the groundwater, essentially, to go to surface water. We use about 7.7 million gallons per day for the parish. That is about 1 well to be fracked. I want to show you a slide here. The Carrizo-Wilcox outcrops right under the parish. To the east is Sparta. We had some of the water districts selling water initially. They're not selling groundwater to the industry now that I'm aware of. Our joint project with the monitoring wells, we have 5 wells in place, and we'll show you a little bit of that data. We've worked jointly with the Watershed Institute. Our students work on that project continually. This is one of the wells this is the well at Walker B. Jacobs Park. This is actually continuously monitored. These are where the wells are located in yellow. We have one up here, which is the background well. That's the Jacobs Park. This is some data. I'm not going to get into any details on it, but just to show that we have been recording this data as water levels. It tends to be showing mainly as seasonality. I was concerned about one of the wells at South Camp was dropping, but of course the company started pulling off the groundwater, so we don't know if that was effective in pulling off or what. That isn't normally the time when you have the lowest water level, by the way. So I think that one may have changed because of policy. This is water quality data we're collecting. And again, that data is available if you want to go in detail on that. Nothing very unusual is coming out of the data at this point. And I want to mention 5 new wells are being drilled. They're shortly going to be drilled. They're in the yellow. We have one up at the park to the north, Noah Tyson, one that's just north of the town of Blanchard, east of Greenwood, down near Eddie Jones Park, and then one over at the LSU campus. The park itself has been quite active. We have a number of projects ongoing out there, continuing to grow on projects, as you just heard a couple minutes ago. One of them is this building we're building. The EPA funded most of this, but by the time we got the money, we needed more money. A local oil gas company, Anderson Oil, stepped in and helped us, and that building is going up fast. It's just over the levee and next to our floating dock. I'm going to skip on through a couple of these slides in here. One of the things that could have happened is the operators could have come in and taken that big 800-pound gorilla approach, but they learned, and mainly because I think that we were so aware of our water issues, particularly having the water monitoring wells in place has really helped a lot. I might mention 7 million gallons per frac job. That's really nothing for surface water, though. You can barely even see it. And we have a lot of surface water in here, and this is changing rapidly in the last week, actually. The Attorney General's office is getting ready to rule on surface water, finally. But we put together this Water Resources Committee. Started out as just a Caddo Parish project. Bill Hanna, we had several other people that helped out on that. Woody was involved as we moved into this, and Robert Glass has been very, very helpful on this, of course, overseeing the water monitoring well project. Anyway, this organization now, we have 4 parishes plus the Selby River Authority working together, trying to deal with water issues. And by having everybody working together, we could more or less speak to the industry as one voice. One thing has happened, a lot of ponds have been, a lot of water being sold off the ponds. That may possibly change a little bit in the future, but I'm going to make it real quick on this. And we had 3 meetings as an adjunct committee from under this that worked at LSUS, brought in the Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife. We were able to come up with a way and methodology to actually start using the Red River water. The state owns that water, and there is no, at this point, a permit as such to draw the water. This is to get access to the water. But it worked out really well, and so well it's been published in several publications. I'll get to one here in just a second. There's the 30 sites that we have today on the river for drawing water, not drawing groundwater because of that. The city has helped out a lot with their bulk station to the south. Mike Strong just told me a couple of days ago that they've actually doubled this. It's being used so much now by industry. That is surface water. The other good thing is starting to use wastewater. International Paper Company has worked with one of the companies, Exco, and they've used it to frack and are continue. They're looking at building a 9-mile pipeline to the center of the parish, and will give us 13 million gallons of wastewater per day. Again, recycling, there's a company in town that's actually got a machine that takes that water and treats it. One of my ex-students is working on that project. The state has changed their methodologies. One thing is this form right here goes into, every time you drill an oil and gas well, you have to turn in this WH1 form within 20 days. Well, now, when you turn that in, it better have on the back of it where you're getting your water for groundwater supply or surface water supply. And it's on there and listed. And that's the way we can tell how much water is being used. Again, this project has gone national. See here, national. This is in the land rig. There's about 10,000 people get that, and the top people, literally financially in the world, get this publication. And here's our project right here in Northwest Louisiana. Again, started by Caddo Parish. So in summary, we do have a water market that's developed here. We're actually seeing individuals. I just got a call a few minutes ago. Chesapeake is hiring another water specialist. We've started that discipline, actually, I think, here in North Louisiana. You see the operators and regulators are working together on these issues. We're actually seeing the operators working with the operators, bartering, trying to use less water, for instance. If they move into one area and they don't have a pond, someone else does, they'll use that water. And I mentioned the WH1 form. And one of the things that's important, I think, that this is a very busy slide, and it's that way intentionally. We're in the center of this with the Watershed Management Institute. Between the regional, the local governments, we're trying, and I think are getting that credibility between the public water needs and the industry itself, also between the regulators and working with the regulators, coordinating with the regulators. So when you look at this, it gets pretty doggone complicated, and that's what it takes to do some water management. We all want this, but we want it done right, and we're starting to solve this problem, I believe, better than anybody else has done it anywhere else in the country or maybe in the world. Any questions?
Dominic?
Yeah, Mr. Hanson, I appreciate you coming here today. As always, you do an outstanding job of the presentation. I appreciate you updating us. Sounds like you do a good job. the monitoring wells, how many do we have right now in the parish? 5?
We have 5 monitoring wells.
Okay, and we're trying to get some more, is that correct?
We have 5 more. We're getting the driller lined up right now.
And so the question would be, how long and when would those be in place?
Hopefully, once they got the driller, you have to imagine there's still a lot of wells being drilled. They do drill wells for supply rig, for supplying the rig. They're still drilling wells for that. But for fracking, they're using surface water. So the rigs have been extremely busy. And we finally got a quote, and David Williamson over here is working with us. Marshall Miller, he was on the first program also, and finally got the quotes back on those, and they look reasonable. So we'll shortly be moving on that the next month.
How far does the monitoring wells go down?
That varies tremendously, and one of the wells at Noah Tyson is the furthest north we're going to have. That well could be extremely shallow. We just don't know. Anywhere from 30 to 100 feet in that well.
Okay.
All the way to our deepest well will be at Eddie Jones. It's going to be around 400 feet. And we drill all the way through the Wilcox till we get to a shale midway, so we can correlate every well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Jenkins?
I want to thank you also for the information. You know, water and fracking of these wells are certainly a hot topic now, and it's good to know that someone is on top of it and giving us the information. And I'm also pleased to see that there is some national recognition that's being given. You went through your slide presentation there, and I wanted to find out, what was the name of the magazine that you said that we were featured in for the...
one of them is a land rig, and it's a private one, that one is. You have to subscribe to it. In fact, I can only make one slide, and that's the slides I made.
You don't have any copies of that available? Is
I don't. I can get a printout of that one slide. I've been told I could because it is a subscription. The other magazines is I need to give that information, but I've been asked to come to the Baton Rouge, to Houston to talk about this, and the Southwest District of the American Water Works Association has just published in the last week an article that I wrote, and it's on the internet. It can be reached on the internet, and I probably should have put it on here, but I can get that information passed around. I move on into Arkansas and Oklahoma in that article, explain how we need to be looking at these issues, literally on a national basis.
You know, I think it'll be good, Mr. Wilson, if we can collect some of this information and keep it available down there for the commission. You know,
There's a lot of bias, too, on the internet.
It is a very important subject, very important. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Baker?
Thank you so much for coming out. I, like Commissioner Jenkins, want to know if we could get a copy of your presentation.
You sure can. I will print you a copy and...
Very good information, very...
Gary, if you could email that to either Woody or myself, we'll make sure they get it, okay?
Okay, I'll do that this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Larry, thank you for coming. I want to personally thank you and Mr. Hanna and Mr. Wilson and all the people, Bossier Parish, Bill Osmos, all these people who years ago realized that we needed to unite to be aware of our water issues and our water challenges. I agree with you. I think it is because of that, having that mechanism in place, that the shale play, which hit us and hit us fast, didn't hit us hard because we were ready. This wasn't naturally, I don't think, done in anticipation there would be a shale play. It just happened to work that way. Once again, I think, as Mr. Cox likes to point out, particularly I think Caddo Parish, with your help and LSU's, have been in a position for years to not just sit here and tend about our daily business, but to look about what challenges we're going to face in the future. And I think in a big way, we dodged a bullet in large part to your efforts and many others, and I just want to personally thank you for those efforts.
Well, thank you. And I can't say enough again about the parish getting proactively on this, particularly working with Woody on these projects has been extremely important.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, any communication reports?
Yes, sir, we do.
Hang on. Administrative report? Is that what you want?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm on communication reports. I don't have any. I have two. You may want to take.
I have one.
Okay, you want to go first?
Well, why would let the president go last since he's the...
First should be last and last should be first.
That's what I'm
That's fine.
talking
Good old Bible verse.
about.
Proceed, Mr. Pearson.
Oh, no, well, just to kind of add a little bit, I think Commissioner Lynch made a report last week about some criminal justice issues that she had attended, I think in San Antonio someplace, but to extend that a little bit further, Mr. Wilson and Commissioner Lindora and I met with a guy, what's his name, Timothy Murray,
Yes.
who is a pretrial justice, works for the Pretrial Justice Institute. Probably a couple of things that's important about the meeting, and we won't go through the entire hour unless I miss something, but the first thing is that he organizes a group that will come down and do a study absolutely free of our justice system in regards to pretrial detainees. I'm on the committee and in charge, and he'll come down free of charge, or he'll assign a committee that will come down free of charge and do a study in regards to our pretrial detainees. Now, the statistic that was interesting, you see across the country they get concerned when the pretrial detainees are up to around 60%. Our pretrial detainees are up closer to 90%. We say, and that's almost unheard of across the country. Because we're talking about 1,000, 1,300 total, 1,300 plus total, and 1,000 pretrial detainees. And he's concerned, as we are concerned, about what we're going to do about addressing that situation. Now, we have been working and talking to judges and DAs and energy defender people about installing some procedure that we can move them through, but it's just not working, whatever it is. Now, the other caveat is that the sheriff has to ask for the study. And I think that the sheriff is as interested as we are in doing what we can to reduce the number of pretrial detainees, and I'm sure that the sheriff will present that to him, and I'm sure that he would be interested enough to ask for that study. Now, it's a short study that will give us a glimpse of what we could do, or what we should be trying to do to help decrease the number of those pretrial detainees. And hopefully we can get that done somewhere late spring or early summer, and maybe even earlier than that, so that we could begin to take a closer look at the concern that I think we all have about the pretrial detainees, or the overcrowded situation at CCC. So I don't know if I forgot anything, Linda or Woody. Is there anything you can add to that?
So you probably, you said it.
Yeah, you said most of it.
You said most of it. They will look at the pretrial situation, the system, and the process we use.
Right.
To deal with that system. So, and it's all free through a federal grant.
Right.
As long as the sheriff concurs with the study and is non-evasive, they deal with the information that we already collect.
Right.
And it just seems to be in line with what we're trying to do, and we do our assessment of the jail's capacity. This will be the other part of that component.
Right.
That will answer all the questions we may have with respect to how do we effectively deal with it.
And certainly we'll present this issue, this information to the sheriff prior to coming back to the commission and saying we'd like to go forward with it. But this is as a point of information, so that you'll know, where we are, and we just like, just a nod more or less to go it on and go forward with presenting the information to the sheriff. And I'm sure that he'll be willing to move forward on that. Then we'll come back before this, before we do anything about the study, we'll come back to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Pearson. Mr. Wilson, when you say that's free, you mean that we've previously paid for it in taxes that we've already paid? Is that what you mean? It's a federal
Yes,
grant?
sir. That's what I meant.
Thank you.
It's nothing like it's free.
Right. It's prepaid.
It's prepaid.
It's been put on there.
You don't
I
have to pay for
understand.
it again.
Yeah, prepaid.
Taxes.
Okay, I want to make you aware that we have two appointees to the Metropolitan Zoning Board of Appeal whose terms will be expiring on April the 10th, Mr. Eddie Cooper and Mr. Alan Berry. So you may want to think about that. If you've had people who have expressed interest in serving, anybody interested, fine. I've got letters. Both of these gentlemen are interested in continuing to serve. It is at the pleasure of this body. So we will need to take up that matter before April 10th. Once again, it's Mr. Eddie Cooper, Mr. Alan Berry, our representatives on the ZBA.
ZBA,
ZBA.
and they want to stay on.
What they would like, but see what happens. All right. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
The first item I have on my admin report today is, in accordance with Section 5-01 of the Caddo Parish Home Rule Charter, I'm pleased to present for your consideration a confirmation Mr. Everett Harris as Director of Animal Services and Mosquito Control for the Parish of Caddo. I had offered and he has accepted a salary of $73,340, which will put him at grade 04, step 12 on our pay chart of unclassified employees. Mr. Harris holds a bachelor's degree in human resources and an MBA in finance from Torrell University, which is located in Cypress, California. Mr. Harris is a product of the national job search we did back in 2007. Y'all know we interviewed folks from Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Michigan, and also here in our local area. And Mr. Harris was our number 2 pick on the list. And we were fortunate enough to, when the position came vacant for the assistant director position in Animal Services, he was available. And when we posted the job, he applied. But he was our second choice in our national job search we did in 2007, that we had chose Mr. Matthew Pepper for different reasons. Okay? So with that being said, he has held the position for 2 years as assistant, and I think he has more than improved his work that he can handle the position of director. And I would suggest and encourage us to support the selection of him come Thursday. I just want to Thursday say also that I think I showed you this manual before. This is a process manual that governs all of our daily processes within our Animal and Service Control Department. Mr. Harris was the chief architect of this document, and he's working on Volume 2. So if you haven't seen something that's very impressive, I encourage you to take a look at it. I'll circulate it. But we have quality here and excellence, and that's what he will continue to espouse, given the opportunity to serve as the Director of Animal Services. And I highly encourage his appointment to that position. I did attach a copy of his resume to the letter I sent you on the subject. Now, if there's any questions on that subject, I'd be glad to answer it for you.
Any questions? Just have one comment. As a retired military man, Mr. Wilson, I can see where you're impressed with that Bible Mr. Harris wrote. And as a retired military man, I can see how Mr. Harris wrote that Bible. So, okay. Next item.
Thank you, sir, for your observation.
God, he's not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yes, thank God he's not a lawyer. That's what Commissioner Dominic said. Pardon me?
Did you like the cover?
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, our next information for you, Commissioner Lynn had made a request that we give you some updates on our industrial parks, where they're located, how much land we have. So Robert has a very sharp presentation for you to let you know what land we have available and where our industrial parks are located.
Good afternoon. Y'all should all have a copy of this. And let me see if I can get this thing.
Man, chill down back here.
On the cover sheet is just a list of the current infrastructure on all the parks. We're going to start off with the Caddo Industrial Park, which is located off of Shirley Francis and Woolworth Road. This park, we currently have approximately 44 acres remaining. This tract we sold back in, I think, 2010 2 or 3 to KRH Wheelan, who has built the building out there and leased it out to Oakley International, their trucking company. They're the only tenant of the park. This is Shirley Francis along here, Woolworth Road along this edge. This is Al Borland Drive, a road we built with EDAP money to service the park. The remaining tracts of land here, approximately 7.5 acres in that tract, and the remaining about 36 or 38 acres. This little pink tract right here is a trash compactor site, which would be excluded if we ever did anything with it. And Caddo Parish owns 100% of all this land. The next site is what we've got left in the West Shreveport Industrial Park. West Shreveport Industrial Park originally was approximately 900 plus acres. It's where General Motors is located. General Electric is located here. There are numerous small manufacturers located here along Julie Francis. We currently have 4 tracks left. North up here, this is a West Park Road, 70th Street, Burt Coons, General Motors, Dinkins Drive. The end of West Park is approximately 10.5 acre tract. There's also a compactor site located here that is open and available. This tract here off of 70th Street is approximately 16.5 acres. This little small tract is, I don't know if that'll ever be used. It's only 2 acres in size. It's pretty small for any kind of development. And on the corner here is about 15.5 acre tract on the corner of General Motors and Burt Coons. And all these sites, as well as the ones in Caddo Industrial Park, are zoned I-1. The next one, we'll move up to the North Shreveport Industrial Park. This one here has quite a few different colors involved here. What we call the North Shreveport Industrial Park is approximately about 110 acres, and it's located in this blue area right here. This park has all the infrastructure in place, the water, streets. It's got North, I think it's North Industry Drive, and I can't think of the name of that one. Tolmac Road, right here off the side. There are 2 industries that have purchased property there. This one here is out of business. We've had some people interested in, but it's really can't really even find the owners there. I don't know if it's in financial problems or what, but it's been shut down for several years. The remaining company here is International Box Company, a subsidiary of International Paper. They're the only tenant of the park right now. These, and all the land inside the park is owned 50/50 with the city of Shreveport. Now, the land in yellow here, this tract here and this tract here are all undeveloped property that we own with the city 50/50 also. The land here around red is approximately 126 acres, 128 acres, where the parish owns 100% of that property. The road access in here, Highway 173, Shreveport Blanchard Road, and Roy Road runs north to south along the side. It also has railroad access, Kansas City Southern on the southwest side. And the remaining property we have is located up north in the Ward 2 Industrial Park, south of Vivian off of Highway 1. Highway 1 over here. It also has the KCS line runs alongside there. It does not have access to the park. The road here is Hoppy Hopkins Drive. It runs from Highway 1 and stops right here currently. This from here to 170 has been cleared, but there's no road there. The tracts in yellow that you see are approximately 229 acres that the parish owns. The rest of the acreage around there is owned by the Ward 2 Industrial Park. The total acreage out there is a little over 900 acres. That's remaining, there's only one tenant in that tract right here. They just recently sold the spec building they built to Allen Electric. And I'm not sure if they're up and running yet, but they're
working on it.
They've moved in and such, and they've made a bunch of improvements on to the building. But that's the extent of our industrial park acreage that we have left in the parish. Any questions?
Cox? Out of the 4 industrial parks that we have, not counting what we just went through, over the last year up to today, got any good bites? I mean, besides the truck company that...
Besides the truck company, just since the truck company came in, I've had 2 inquiries about property for industrial oil field supply companies. They were looking for larger tracts, which the Caddo Industrial is the only one we have that has a large amount of acreage together.
So basically the same one that was off of Shirley Francis?
Yes.
Okay. What is the extent of, how do we market these right now? I mean, it's just...
Right now, the chamber, they market for us as part of their
I know they
job.
do. I know they do, but as far as Caddo as a whole.
Caddo, I mean, all the
Have
real estate
signs
people know us. We have signs out there on the property that have our number and contact us if they're interested in it. And that's about the extent of it. I think we're working on a website, internet type deal.
Yes. I was looking at another venture to, I've been talking to Mr. Patrick Dennis about doing a professional video presentation to put it on our website on all our industrial parks. But I kind of put that on hold until we get some further direction from the board on how aggressive you want us to be with respect to our industrial parks, because that's kind of critical. Don't want to spend money to go out and do something that perhaps may not be consistent with what the board wants to do. So we held up on that. But that was our third option to help promote our industrial parks.
Good. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Glass. Wilson?
Yes, sir. I'd like to take this time to introduce a new team member, Ms. Valerie. She's in the audience. Ms. Valerie is taking, Ms. Valerie, why don't you come forward so they can see who you are.
We're doing chopping block.
We had about 30 applicants. Why don't you go ahead and introduce her.
We interviewed 10 applicants, what we interviewed, and Valerie was our choice. Valerie comes to us with over 10 years of purchasing experience. She worked as assistant procurement manager for Harris Casino, as well as the assistant purchasing manager for Bossier Parish Community College. Her most recent position was as the executive director of the Multicultural Center of the South. She currently sits on the board of directors for both the Shreveport Chamber and the Shreveport-Bossier Tourism Commission. We're glad to have Valerie aboard, and we look forward to working with her.
Any comments?
Get ready.
I want to welcome you to the parish. I'm glad you're here. Previous to your arrival, I viewed that thing up there as an old tractor with that throttle stuck on that turtle. You need to get on that rabbit. You get my drift?
I think he just gave you a challenge to take it to another level. Okay. Well, welcome aboard, Valerie. Glad to have you as our team member. Okay. We have a short presentation from Mr. Ken Ward. He attended that meeting last week dealing with water issues. We'll be brief.
Thank
you, Ken.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I was asked to attend the Louisiana Senate Committee on Environmental Affairs. I believe Commissioner Smith attended it, was there for a few minutes last Thursday. Mainly what it is the Louisiana Senate wanted to find out what can it do to help our water issues due to the Haynesville Shale. They brought in the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals, and the Department of Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, and asked them what each one of them does for protecting of the water for the Haynesville Shale play. And in the whole area. Mr. Hanson gave a little presentation. They also had an open forum where they allowed citizens to come up and talk about it and provide questions and answers, and they allowed the opportunity for the residents who had issues to hear straight from the mouth from the DEQ or from the Department of Natural Resources or to the Department of Health and Sciences or Health and Hospitals. So really what it was just a fact-finding mission from the Louisiana senators who are on the committee to find out what they can do, legislatively to help protect the water with the Haynesville shale play. Other than that, it was pretty quiet. There was some little excitement due to some residents, but it was a good information. Nothing that most of us hadn't already heard before. It was just allowing our legislative committee to hear that when they go to Baton Rouge. Any questions?
Any questions for Ken? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you all. Good afternoon.
Okay. Sir, that concludes my report for today.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. If there's anybody here that wishes to address the commission on any matter pertaining to business relative to the commission? Not, we'll move on. Any old business? Nope. New business?
Ordinance 4972 declares adjudicated property to be surplus.
Move to Thursday.
Second. Been moved by Commissioner Pearson for Thursday, seconded by Commissioner Cox. There's a change on this ordinance. I want you to go down to the district numbers and scratch it out, and I'll give you the new ones, and they will be changed to reflect Thursday's agenda. It's districts 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 12. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 12. Caddo?
That was my question. What happened to 9?
That information, 9's gone.
I know, but what happened to it?
I don't know. Ask.
That's what I'm asking.
Ask Mr. Whittington. Mr. Whittington, what happened to 9?
We don't know if we have any ready to go in District 9 at this time.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
It's good, we don't know. All right.
That's a wonderful answer.
Any more discussion on that? All right, let's have to move to Thursday. Ms. McCullough, you want to vote? Thank you, that passes. Next item, please.
Ordinance 4973 revokes dedication of North Roach Circle in Roachcliffe Estates.
Motion by
Move to Thursday.
Commissioner Pearson. Seconded by Commissioner Thibodeau. Any discussion on this motion? Vote to move to Thursday. It passes. Next item, please.
Ordinance 4974 rescinds the Bear Bryant subdivision.
Move to Thursday.
Moved by Commissioner Smith to move to Thursday, seconded by Commissioner Cox. Is there any discussion on this motion? If not, please vote.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thibodeau.
I'd like to, in global resolution 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And it's shown as, under new business, it's number 5 through 10.
It's moved and seconded, moved by Commissioner Thibodeau, seconded by Commissioner Cox, that we global items 5 through 10 move to Thursday. Is there any discussion on this motion?
I would like to talk on 9. But it's going to be a support.
You can do.
Dominic first.
For discussion, you can do that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just would ask that Ms. Frazier on resolution number 22, that's regarding the endorsement of Gulf Crossing for the participation in the Louisiana Enterprise Pipeline Zone Program. It's my understanding that we try to make contact with Gulf Crossing at least 2 or 3 times. They have applied for endorsement through the Louisiana Enterprise Pipeline Zone Program, but have failed to provide us with the information as far as job creation. Therefore, looks like we're not going to be able to endorse it. I would just ask for you to at least make one more contact by phone call and by email, because if they're able to get this information to us by Thursday, they need to get it so we can get this taken care of and hopefully get some benefits. If they're not going to respond and do what they're going to do, then we'll have to deny it, but I would ask that be done, okay?
Okay, Commissioner Dominic, subject to that being done, I'll leave it up to you to give us a heads up and we'll pull it from Thursday's agenda if need be. Thank you. Commissioner Lynn.
Just to touch base on resolution number 23, I asked to be on the agenda for the levy board in January for their January meeting. At that meeting, I invited Mr. Robert Glass, DOS, Ron Norwood, Mike Strong, and Ali Mustafa. And it was at that meeting that we threw up the idea of what can we do to solve stormwater drainage for Caddo Parish as a whole, including, of course, the city of Shreveport. Nobody had any ideas, and we were going to think on it for a month, and we came back in February for the meeting, and Don Maddox brought up that the Louisiana Department of Transportation had used this two-part study, a Facebook study, which was interactive with factual information from several governmental entities, as well as information and input from the citizens. Then it took a clearinghouse person, which we were going to need to find to do this job, which is very time-consuming and quite labor-intensive, to do the management of this, and nobody knew who, and so we said, well, let's do this if we can find someone to take on this project. It was at that point that they asked me, or we concluded to contact LSUS, which is when I went to Dr. Paul Sisson, the provost for the art and science for LSUS. That is also the same department that Caddo Parish gave $120,000 to earlier this year. In asking him for help, he then steered me towards Mrs. Amanda Lewis, who gave the presentation earlier today. She works directly underneath Gary Hansen. If you'll notice on that first page for Red River Watershed that her name was directly underneath his. She was given permission to take this project on by Gary Hansen, who has vowed his support or endorsement from the Red River Watershed, as well as Chancellor Vincent Marsalis to do this project as well. And so far I've heard lots of support for it, and we will be looking for support from NLCOG, the city of Shreveport, which we'll do a presentation for later on this month, and the river, and the levy board at the last meeting that we attended said that they were just going to tweak some of the wording in the resolution from Caddo Parish and tentatively plan on approving it for next meeting. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, guys, ready to move this to Thursday? Start, please. Thank you. Okay, next we have two items of new business. Mr. Cox, would you like to make your motion in reference to Mr. Harris?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to move to Thursday to confirm the addition of Mr. Everett Harris as the new Director of Cattle Animal Control. If I can get a second.
Good. Been moved by Mr. Cox and seconded by Mr. Pearson. It will move to Thursday and take up confirmation of Mr. Harris, the Director of Animal and Mosquito Control. Is there any discussion on that motion? Let's vote, please. That passes. Next, Mr. Smith, you have an item regarding Fire District 6. Make your motion, please.
I'd like to move that Patrick Machado be appointed replacement for Jimmy Cuvion for Fire District 6.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Smith and seconded by Ms. McCulloch that Mr. Machado be approved to replace Mr. Cuvion in Fire District 6. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, please vote. That passes. Okay, didn't miss anything. We have our consent agenda. Anything else? If not, we're adjourned. We're adjourned.